Hi, I'm pretty excited. I've come down to one of the local lakes to hopefully do a bit of prawning. It's fairly early in the season, so I'm not sort of putting too much emphasis on getting a lot of prawns, but no, more or less come down to have a look today or tonight. What are we, a couple of days prior to the new moon? Tide's running in, won't start running out until after dark, so this lake is still open to the ocean. They do tend to close off at times. They're intermittently open and closed. If they do close off, prawns can't get out. So we have nice clear water. It's just whether the prawns are going to get themselves up off the bottom, school up and run out to sea with that outgoing tide. But we won't know that until later when the tide turns. Anyway, I'm getting pretty excited about it. The water's quite deep along the edge here, so I'm going to have to try and find somewhere where the water's a bit shallower. I'm just using an underwater light and a scoop net because I'm going to have a bucket, my camera, and hopefully get a few shots underwater as well. Anyway, we'll just wait till it gets dark. So in this lake, or a lot of the lakes up and down the coast, there's generally two types of prawns. There's a king prawn and what's known as a school prawn. What's the difference? A few differences. The school prawn has really long whiskers, the two coming out the side that they detect all sorts of things with, and generally about twice the length of its body, whereas a king prawn, those are about 1.5 times the length of the body. Their behaviour, how they act, the king prawns are fairly predictable. Well, I've been prawning for decades, so I pretty much know how they're going to control their behaviour in the water, whereas a school prawn are very erratic, so catching them can be quite difficult with a scoop net, that is. So drag nets, different story. I mean, you're just dragging and whatever ends up in the net is what you get, so a matter of just sorting it out from there. But yeah, the king prawns tend to gravitate towards the light, provided the light's not too bright. I see some people running around with these bright headlamps and underwater lights, and it looks like a Christmas tree, and of course the prawns either bury or totally avoid them. With the school prawns, they're more inclined to keep away from the light, and more generally they're more inclined to bury under the sand. So these people come out with these nice bright lights thinking they're going to catch a lot of prawns, but they're better off with a really dull light, or like the old tilly lamps they used to use, where all the prawns actually gravitated towards that light. Anyway, just a bit more information that might be handy for you.
These school prawns are very light in colour. They have a long snout, and their antennae or whiskers are twice the length of their body. And when they do come in contact with the bright light, they do tend to bury fairly quickly. King prawns, on the other hand, can vary in colour from light to orangey browny colour. They often have a blue tinge on their tail. Their snouts are shorter, and their whiskers are about 1.5 times the length of their body. They also tend to be not quite as shy of the light as is the school prawn. And they are more predictable in their movements or their behaviour.
So what I'll be looking for, or hoping for, is for the prawns to actually school up. In other words, for them all to come together in a big school, and then when they get the word, out they go to sea all together, and then you try and capitalise on that, as do a lot of the fish as well, because they're trying to eat all these prawns as they're going down. They school up to give themselves a better chance of some going out to sea, where they have to go to breed. So if they do that, that'd be great. Other times they'll be just hanging around, feeding, coming out of the sand, burying, and it's a hard way to catch them. If they're schooled up and running, much easier to get a good feed and plenty for bait. Anyway, we'll have to just wait and see what they're doing tonight.
I've just been looking along the edge and there's hundreds and hundreds of bluebottles. I look out in the water and there's heaps coming in with the tide as well, which really is a bit of concern since I'll be walking out in that water barefooted and no protection on my legs.
I've now come to the entrance at where the beach is, where it actually enters the lake, just here. And I'm just a bit concerned about the blue bottles. Check this out. There's heaps in the water coming into the lake, washing into the lake as well. I've got nothing on my legs. I usually just prawn barefooted and with a pair of board shorts on. So I'm having reservations because this time of the year the blue bottles are actually quite toxic. In that, I mean, they hurt like hell. Later in the year after Christmas, not a problem, but this time of the year, just prior to Christmas, they seem to sting a lot more. I had a sting a couple of years ago, and normally the pain dissipates within half an hour or so. This stayed around for about a week, which is just horrendous. So anyway, I just have to see if there's prawns coming. I might have to risk it or move back further into the lake where there's less blue bottles. But yeah, it's not looking good at the entrance, that's for sure. Anyway, we'll work it out as we go.
Well, it's just got dark and I've noticed that the prawns are starting to come out of the sand. They're also appearing to be schooling up, hopefully getting ready to run out to sea with that outgoing tide later. Anyway, I'll try and get a few now, kick a few off the bottom and scoop them up. Just about all the prawns I'm seeing here are king prawns. which is good because I know what direction they're going to go if I give them a kick. So I just place the net in the appropriate position, give them a kick from the other side, and into the net they go. So I've set my position about 400 or 500 metres from the entrance, so all those blue bottles I saw earlier, I'm not having any problem with them at all. So they obviously haven't come this far into the lake. Well, the tide has now changed and it's starting to run out. There are a lot of prawns that have started to move out with that tide, but several of them have come up into the shallow water where they're sitting almost in a big school with 40 or 50 prawns in a small area with their noses pointing into the tide. It's a fairly simple process to catch the prawns when this tide's running out and they're sitting on the bottom. Merely give them a kick, have the net on the ocean side of the prawn, and as they come off the bottom they will go slightly with the tide. Then just scoop the net under them and lift it quickly. Shake them to the bottom of the net to prevent them from escaping back out, which they often try to do. Well, despite it being early in the season, I've ended up with about 4 kilos, so I'm pretty happy about that. So we have our prawns. All we need to do now is cook them. Now my family's been cooking prawns this way for well over a century, and the process has been passed down through generations. So it's a fairly simple process, but it works really well. So what you need to do is get your raw prawns. Now whether they're fresh ones that you've just caught or they're ones that you've frozen and thawed out, it's exactly the same process. So we'll get a big pot of water and boil it. I throw a bit of salt in there as well. Now I'm cooking about 1 kilo of prawns today for the wife and I for dinner tonight. So I'll do it in 2 batches. I'll have about 500 grams in each batch. I'll put them into the boiling water. The moment they rise to the surface, they are cooked. So I need to scoop them out and put them in cold water to prevent them from overcooking. So as soon as they're rising to the surface, I'll be scooping them out. Smaller prawns generally rise a little bit quicker than the bigger ones. They take a little bit longer. So scoop them out, put them in cold water, then I'll put them in some iced water, leave them for a couple of minutes, take them out, drain them, then I'll sprinkle them in salt and virtually let them stand for an hour, a couple of hours, and they're ready to eat. So let's get started. So here I have my boiling water, half my prawns there, iced water there or cool water, and then I'll put them into some iced water over here to let them cool for another minute or so, and then I'll repeat the process with the second lot. I just throw some salt in there just to salt it up, let that dissolve for a minute or two. Okay, my water's well and truly boiling, not that you can see it through the steam, so I'll get
half my prawns, which is about half a kilo there. Throw them into the boiling water. Now this will take about a minute or so. You can see them starting to go red already. A minute or so for them to cook and come to the surface, and then I'll be scooping them off. Some of the smaller ones are cooked. You can see them starting to rise to the surface now. So I'll just scoop them off as they cook and put them in cold water. Again, you see more rising all the time. So as they rise, take them off, scoop them off into the cold water. Again, more and more are rising, so they're probably pretty much all cooked now. That didn't take long at all, about a minute I suppose. Take that hot water out, put them in there. Almost done. I think that's the last, almost the last one. There we go. In there. Okay, now I'll transfer these to the iced water. Okay, I'll transfer these now to the iced water and let them cool for another minute or two. And then I'll take them out and drain them. Then I'll repeat the process with the second lot, exactly the same. Okay, there's the second batch. Just drain that a little and just spread them out. And then next thing to do is salt them. So now I'm just going to sprinkle them with salt. You could use Himalayan salt, Celtic salt. I'm just using some cooking salt today. Just give it a generous amount. And that'll take a couple of hours to soak in properly. Just move them around a bit, make sure that they're all covered. And my mouth's starting to water now. I just thought of eating these. They are most beautiful prawns. It's much nicer than the farm prawns that you buy from the supermarket and the fish outlets. However, these being wild prawns are just so much nicer. Cooked properly and not overcooked, and they should peel really easily.
So there are my prawns. They're cooked, salted and ready to be refrigerated. I know a lot of people have trouble peeling prawns, but if you follow this method of cooking, it makes the job so much easier. Let's have a look at how easy this really is.
So peeling the prawn is a very simple process. Just get the prawn like that. I'm right-handed. Left hand, twist the head away from yourself. Get in underneath that shell on the front legs. Twist it off. Squeeze the tail. There you have it. One more. Again. Twist in underneath there like that. Squeeze the tail. Doesn't take long. Very quick process. Once you get it down pat. And done. So let's just slow this down so you can get a closer look at it.
Twist the head off. Now get your thumb in between the legs underneath at the front and rotate the shell around the prawn. Then squeeze the tail section and as you pull the body away from there.
So if you like what you've seen today, by all means give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll bring you more of this sort of thing in the future.
Thanks for watching.